was, all of these ingredients. The classroom now is beyond the four walls and looking into all of this. Who then has come out on the other end of this conveyor belt, as it were, and how are you delivering them to the world to show that what you put in is actually achieving the required or desired results?
Sure. So to speak to that, I have to qualify something. Our school is a startup school. So we've been open for 2 years in Rwanda. Our vision is a lot older than that, and the partnerships that we have with other schools are a lot longer than that. But we only have right now 2 cohorts, and we're going to add a cohort each year until we have all 6 years of secondary school in Rwanda at our school. So right now, we have basically a grade 7 and a grade 8 cohort who have just graduated on to grades 8 and 9, and we have a new grade 7 cohort coming in. So for the upcoming school year, 3 year groups. And so none of our students have graduated from our school yet. And so we can't produce IB results for you or Harvard and Cambridge acceptance letters. But what we can say is that some of our learners have already risen as individuals to great achievements. So we had one of our students, for example, become Miss Nerd Rwanda for her project, which was an app for breast cancer detection for women in underserved communities, and that was recognized, and she won that particular competition nationally and was able to go on to an international competition in that regard. We've had several students score with honors in the Stimulate international competition. We had one student qualify for the Global Math Olympiad in Rome already, and we had multiple students make it into the final round. In fact, well over 100 students made it into the final round for the Math Olympiad nationally in Rwanda. So we're already seeing excellent results. In NWEA map testing, which is a kind of global standardized test that's based in the United States but used throughout the world, our students outperformed even Chinese students on average in mathematics. So we can show that we're on a good trajectory. What I will say is our sister school, Louisenlund in Germany, where I was the principal of the international school for nearly a decade, and I worked at that school for over a decade in school leadership. That school has demonstrated that since we've shifted to these more learner-centered approaches to education, particularly in the academic context, that results have trended upward. And in fact, this past year, the cohort that graduated from Louisenlund scored the highest results on the IB diploma program examinations that the school has ever scored, and those scores were significantly above the world average. So we can say that this approach to learning that we have, which many people would argue is risky, because you have high-stakes assessments that are externally marked, that are designed externally afterwards. So you have to meet a global standard, or in some cases a national standard. You could say, well, how can we do this if we're being so experimental, if we're giving students so much agency, if we're redefining what the classroom is? How do we deliver all the content so they can still perform? Well, the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is the results that Louisenlund has delivered after using this approach for 6 years consistently in its IB World School, and for a few years in its German secondary school, which also just recently had top results. So it seems to be working. We believe in it strongly, and I really don't think it has to be an either or. We often think, ooh, how do I deliver my academic content? How do I prepare kids for examinations? While at the same time giving them all these soft skills, all these, to use a cliche, 21st century skills like creativity and problem-solving skills and critical thinking skills, collaboration skills. How do we do that? How do we do both? And I would say, if you promote these kind of skills, if you promote student ownership, if you find out what they're curious about and allow them to build their learning program to the greatest extent possible around those passions and interests, you will see better results because they will be more invested in their learning.
Yeah.
We have to realize as educators, just because I cover my curriculum, just because I deliver my content, doesn't mean that students are actually internalizing it or actually integrating it into their understanding in their lives. They may have been in your classroom when you covered the unit on analyzing the German Romantics in literature, but they may have been half asleep. And they also may have been glad to get it out of their system once they took your examination, which, by the way, they probably only scored at a pretty mediocre level on anyway, just enough to pass. And then it's forgotten, it's over and done with. That's not the kind of learning we want. So I would say let's be bold as educators.
Yeah.
Let's take our learners seriously, find out what they're interested in, and find out what they need, find out what they want to achieve, and see how we can work with the curricular framework we have to structure their learning around that, and see how that jives or harmonizes or syncs with the other learners in their group so that they can learn from each other, and so that this social aspect of learning is not missing.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at students